Hi everyone, it's Krishana. Welcome back to my channel, and you are in for a new treat with my new series, Krishana's Reading Corner. So thank you so much for joining me. If you don't know who I am Krishana. I am a media and campaigns executive at a Black-owned agency. I'm a recovering journalist and also a speculative fiction writer. So on this channel, we're going to be talking about both writing and reading. And this is going to be our September fall wrap up. So all the things that I read in September, along with some stats. So in September, I mostly read Black or Asian authors. Primarily, most of the authors that I read are primarily Black authors. I definitely will include some BIPOC authors who are not Black in there as well. But I very much stay in a very tight frame of what I read. And it's mostly because, growing up, elementary, middle, high school, college, even going to HBCU, we read a ton of authors who were not Black. So if I literally never read another book from an author who was not Black, I still would probably have read primarily books that weren't written by Black authors. And so in my leisure time, I try to really read as many Black authors as I can. And I like to be in the space of speculative fiction, thriller, cozy mysteries, and a little bit of romance as well. So you'll notice that if you're into that, this is definitely the channel for you. What I'll be doing when I talk about my September wrap up is giving a little bit of a deep dive of to what the book was about, kind of who the book is for, and then a little bit of background about what I liked about the book. What you'll notice is that I don't do a rating system or really try to rag on books at all, because as also a writer, I think it's important to not shit on people's work. So let's get started. Okay, so the first book that I read in September, I was so excited about it. It is the final installment of The Boyfriend Project by Farrah Roshan, and the book is called The Hookup Plan. I have been waiting for this book. I read the first two when they came out, and I was on pins and needles waiting for this book. So a little bit about this book. This book follows Lauren, who is one of three friends who kind of all met after they went viral. They found out they were all dating the same dude, which was trifling. They found out, all met at the restaurant, basically cussed dude out, and then they decided to be friends, which is great and cute. They initially make a little pact basically to kind of swear off guys and kind of all focus on their own things, whether it's going back to school or finding a hobby or whatever the case may be. So each book follows one of the three women who became friends. And so this book follows London. So London is a pediatric surgeon at a hospital that has been completely divested from. She goes to her high school reunion and basically ends up sleeping with her arch nemesis from high school, this dude who had transferred to her high school close to their senior year. She sleeps with dude, and next thing you know, she shows up at her hospital on Monday for work, and the dude is there. And she was like, what is going on right now? So basically, this dude's company has been hired to evaluate whether or not her hospital should stay open. And basically chaos ensues from there. This is a very traditional, enemies to lovers storyline. And the book was everything, honestly. What I liked about this book, I guess I'll start with what I'm sad about. So I actually messaged the author on TikTok and asked, were they gonna write anything else in this series? And unfortunately, this is the last installment of this series, and I'm very sad about it. I'm definitely gonna have to read some more of their other work, but just because this is the last installment of the series does not mean you should not pick it up and read it, because it is 100% a book that you should read. I think you'll enjoy it a ton. Overall, this series is just a really well-written romance series. There weren't too many times with the characters that I was just humming and hawing and okay, what are you doing? Why are you having all these weird emotions? Why don't you just talk to the person? Why are you having these strange communication errors? And while that's very typical in the tropes of romance, and there is some of it, it wasn't to the point that I was humming and hawing, and I didn't feel like the book was dragging, right? The book pace was good and it was very interesting from start to finish. So the book has all the romance tropes, but none of it is overdone, which is the important part. So who this book is for. So if you love traditional romance books, I would say check. This book is definitely for you. If you like the enemies to lovers trope, this book is also for you. And then if you like a strong romance as well as like strong girlfriend groups, this book is also for you as well. So definitely pick this book up. Okay, so the second book that I read in September was Last Tang Standing by Lauren Ho. This book had all the mess, honestly. Like, this is probably the messiest book that I read in September. So let's get into it. So this book follows Andrea. She is 33. She is the last kind of unmarried person in her family in her generation. She's a lawyer, very successful, and honestly, like, she's a cool chick. Like, I can see myself hanging out with Andrea. But the thing about her is that she's super messy. Like, just has a messy, regular, like 30-something life person who lives in a major city, which, you know, is going to go against all of the conventional values that her family has placed upon her. In a weird turn of events, she finds this ultra successful entrepreneur and businessman. He's like a millionaire or billionaire, I don't remember, but he seems to like her and they hit it off and they start dating. So of course, you think that like this has to be her love interest. This is who she's going to be with. Stop the presses. No, instead, sis has this really, really weird like relationship with one of her co-workers. They are enemies. Like, they both are vying to become partner at their law firm, and like she's like weirdly attracted to this man. Like, weirdly attracted, even though they like cuss each other out and like are undermining each other the entire series. Like, sis is loving the chaos. So she basically at some point has to figure out like who does she want. Oh, also, her coworker is engaged, so he's also off the market. So honestly, it's just a very messy and chaotic book. What I liked about this book, it explained the backstory very well, and you know, it's based in Singapore, and so a lot of people are comparing it to like Crazy Rich Asians, kind of giving that vibe. And well, I think it does do that. One thing about Crazy Rich Asians is there was like a lot of info dumping, right? Like, if you actually read the book in print, there was like all these like little pieces and tidbits of information all in the margins of the book, etc. And so I read this book on audio, but it wasn't that much info dumpy. Like, it definitely included like the cultural references. It was great. You guys learned about Singapore, etc. But it wasn't too much. And so I think that was perfect. Provided good backstory, but not too much. And the like really judgmental family trope was like funny and interesting. And so I really enjoyed and loved that trope of this romance. And the best part really was that the main character was messy. So many times, like, main characters are not allowed to be messy. They're not allowed to be unlikable, but this works here. So people who would like this book would love like a messy protagonist. They would probably love Crazy Rich Asians. They would love like enemies to lovers, and then also anybody who loves like a traditional romance. Okay, so the third book that I read in September was not a book that I was supposed to read. I kind of fell into this book. So it's called Counterfeit by Kirsten, Chen. And so this book follows Ava Wong. So Ava was like a businesswoman, got married, had a kid, and basically became a stay-at-home mom. And she has like a really kind of weird failing marriage. Her toddler's always throwing tantrums and basically is being raised by the nanny. And she randomly bumps into this friend she had. I wouldn't even consider it a friend. She bumps into her college roommate out and about. Come to find out, her college roommate like convinces / kind of like swindles her into joining her into this like counterfeit luxury bag scheme. And basically like chaos ensues from there. So the one little hesitancy thing I have about this book is that it wasn't written like in present tense or like as the action was happening. It was all written from reflection. And so while that's interesting, the thing about reflection is that it clearly lets you know that all the characters, or at least the character who's the narrator, who's given the reflection, is probably gonna make it out of the situation. So it kind of lessened the stakes a little bit of the story. But the story was still good. So like basically the story starts off with like Ava giving a like testimony to a police officer. So you know that like at some point she does get jammed up by the police, but like we don't know too much else. But I think that like hearing the narrative from her perspective at times like made it a little choppy or weird. And I really just would have loved this book even more if it would have been like more present tense action. Overall, I think this book was great because it was really something for the fashion girlies. So I'm thinking about everybody who like read or like, I think a lot of people didn't read A Devil Wears Prada. Most people watched it. But for me, I didn't read Devil Wears Prada, but I did read some books by the author after this, like the one that's titled something, Lululemon, whatever. I did read that one. And so I feel like anybody who's like a little bit into fashion, a fashion girl, anybody who like, you know, collects a little bit of designer bags would love this one because it's like underground scheme for the luxury empire. And we know that's a whole thing, like the unboxing and blah, blah, blah. So that made this great. So I would say like, if you like organized crime, if you like a messy protagonist, this book is for you. If you're a fashion girly, this book is for you. And so this fourth book and final book that we're gonna get into, if you don't get any of the other books that I mentioned, this is the one. This is the one, like run to your local bookstore, go to your Audible app, your Kindle, wherever you read, listen to books, this is the one. Like, I guarantee you, this is the one. And if I would say like this book also is the most enigmatic of like my personal book taste. So like if you like this book, then I feel like we're gonna vibe on the books. So this last one is Honey and Spice by Balu, Babaloa. And baby, when I tell you this is the book. So I would say this book is like Dear White People, minus a lot of the like white supremacy and racism, but enter like fuckboys, right? And then like make it African diaspora. Like that would be how I would describe this book. So if you're into like dragging fuckboys, this is your book. If you kind of like the concept of like Dear White People, her having being a radio show DJ and it being set in college, etc., this is your book. To like the racism, white supremacy, like all of that stuff, this also works for you too. So also, if you love deep dives into like the expansiveness that is the African diaspora, baby, this book is for you as well. So definitely check it out for that. And then also college settings. So many of the books that I personally have been reading lately include like romances that had people who were in either their late 20s to like early 30s, maybe even mid to late 30s. But it was nice to be back in a college setting for a book. So I would definitely say that, like, you know, if you feel a little nostalgia about like college life, this book definitely works. And I didn't feel like the characters were immature, right? Like there was definitely a maturity to the characters, which I also really loved and enjoyed. So that's it, y'all. That's the 4 books. And so let's get into these stats. So I'm going to be looking off a little bit to read these stats to make sure that we have everything correctly. But first, let's start with my reading mood for the month. So my reading mood was largely emotional and lighthearted, which I would definitely agree with both of those for my month. And then also funny and reflective. And so it's funny that I got the reflective one because, as I mentioned, one of the books definitely had this like reflective quality to it that I didn't really care for. So I would say if I had to do it again, I probably would not have read Counterfeit for the reflective aspect of it. And so my genres were really straightforward. They were contemporary and romance. So very, very straightforward. Not a lot there, y'all. So thank you so much for joining me for my September wrap up. Next up, I will be talking about like my TBR list for October, what I'm reading, what I'm getting into. Please believe there will be some spooky things added there as well. And thank you so much for taking your time to do this little September reading wrap up with me in Krishana's Reading Corner. And I will check y'all later. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.